Okay, so you know that feeling, right? That little itch, maybe sometimes a huge urge to just hit reset. Like
Mm.
new job, new friends, maybe even pack up and move to a whole new city.
Yeah, definitely. Or even just like a whole new look, a new
Oh,
aesthetic.
totally.
Right.
Or like this idea you could become a completely different person
Yeah.
and you think, "Okay, then I'll finally feel like, well, me." It's that constant pull of starting fresh.
It is a really powerful fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah.
The idea that you can just, shed everything that feels wrong or heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And well, that's what we're really getting into today in this deep dive. Because what if? What if that feeling isn't actually about you being fundamentally lost or broken?
Okay.
What if it's maybe simpler? Like maybe you're just really, really tired, exhausted from carrying around this version of yourself that just doesn't quite fit anymore.
That hits home. We do often look outside, don't we, for the fix. But yeah, what happens when you've tried changing the job or the city maybe multiple times and that feeling is still there?
Okay, yeah. So let's start there. Part one. The burnout, the sheer exhaustion of constantly trying to reinvent yourself. It feels like, I don't know, like running on a treadmill, kind of.
Mm.
You put in all this effort, right, to become this new
Hmm.
person, but underneath, still just tired.
Absolutely. There's a real emotional and frankly mental cost
Yeah.
to that. Constantly shedding identities, building new ones. Think about the energy that takes.
Yeah.
Building new connections from scratch, learning new places, basically performing a new version of you. It's draining. No wonder it leads to burnout. It can even mess with like your own story of who you are, leaving you feeling kind of disconnected.
And that urge, the classic one, I'm just going to move to a new city. I mean, I've felt that.
No, for
You
sure.
think, okay, change the backdrop, change the problems. Like the issues are somehow, I don't know, stuck to your apartment building or something.
Well, the appeal of a fresh start, it's huge.
Hmm.
A new place feels like a blank slate, doesn't it? An opportunity to leave the unwanted stuff behind. But you know the saying, wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
We inevitably pack our internal world right along with our sweaters.
Mm.
The fantasy and the reality,
Yeah.
they don't always match up.
Which brings up this idea you mentioned our same wounds. You can change the zip code, the clothes, maybe even try out a nickname. But those core issues, the unresolved feelings, man, they are persistent. They just seem to tag along.
They really do. It's kind of fascinating how resilient our internal patterns are. We might consciously try to build this totally different external life,
Hmm.
right?
Mm.
But unless we actually dig into the roots of why we're unhappy, those deep ways of thinking and feeling that just kind of repeat themselves, well, those patterns are probably just going to pop right back up in the new place.
And then there's that quiet creeping feeling of shame sometimes, you know? You've tried on like five different hats, five different versions of you, and you still feel like you haven't quite found the real one.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, okay, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just figure this out?
And that shame, it often gets turned up to 11 by what we see, especially, let's be honest, on social
Oh,
media.
definitely.
We see these glossy photos, right? Effortless transformations, dramatic glow-ups, these amazing fresh starts. But what's missing? Usually it's the messy, hard internal work that real growth actually takes.
Totally.
So when our own attempts don't look like that Insta-perfect montage, it's really easy to feel like, yeah, like we're failing.
Right. You see the highlight reel, someone quits their job, moves to Bali, finds Zen instantly. You don't see the potential loneliness or maybe the same old anxieties cropping up next to the palm trees. It makes starting over look like this simple, almost magical fix.
And that can trap you in a cycle, right?
Yeah.
Always seeking,
Yeah.
jumping from one reinvention to the next, thinking, this time it'll stick. It's like chasing a mirage, really.
Which makes me think maybe sometimes what we actually need isn't a whole new life jammed into a suitcase. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just a break, a pause from pretending that the life we have right now is totally fine when it isn't. Just acknowledging the fatigue, the discomfort, without immediately hitting the eject button for a total overhaul.
That pause, that space, it can be incredibly valuable. It
Right.
lets you step back, breathe, and maybe ask some deeper questions. Like, what am I really looking for underneath this constant urge to restart? What am I actually trying to run away from?
Okay, so that leads perfectly into the next bit.
Yeah.
Shifting the focus inward. If it's not always about escaping our town or our job, what are we running from? That's part two for me, that internal detective work.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really juicy, I think.
Mm.
Because often that desire to start over, it isn't really about the external stuff at all. It's more about creating distance from something inside.
Like the past. Maybe things that happened, mistakes we made, even just memories we'd rather not deal with.
Exactly that. Or maybe it's a failure, or what feels like a failure. A career path that didn't work out, a relationship that ended badly, a goal we didn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
Starting over feels like it wipes the slate clean, right? Takes away the weight of that perceived failure. Poof, gone.
Or, okay, what about this one? A version of ourselves that other people still see us as, even if we feel like we've changed a lot.
Oh, that's a big one.
Like maybe you've done a ton of growing, but your family or your old college buddies, they still treat you like you're 20, you know? And it feels suffocating. Like you have to keep playing this old role.
That gap between who we feel we are now inside and how others keep seeing us, that could be a huge driver for wanting to reinvent. It's like trying to get the outside to match the inside, finally.
And then there's that feeling maybe you've outgrown your current situation, your town, your friend group, whatever. You don't actually know what's next.
Yeah.
It's like, this doesn't fit anymore, but the future looks kind of fuzzy, blurry. So just cutting ties completely and jumping into the unknown seems like the cleanest option.
That in-between space, that liminal space, as they call it, it can feel really uncomfortable, can't it?
Super uncomfortable.
When you're changing, but you haven't landed yet. The urge to just skip over that uncertainty, leap into something totally new and seemingly defined. It's very strong, very tempting.
And what about the fear? The fear of being like truly seen before you feel ready?
Yeah, vulnerability.
Like we have to curate this perfect polished version first before anyone gets too close or sees the messy bits, the real us.
That fear of being seen with our flaws, our imperfections.
Yeah.
That definitely fuels a lot of the constant tweaking, the adjustments to how we present ourselves. We keep hoping the next reinvention will be the one that feels safe enough to let people actually see.
And this one really got me when I was thinking about it. The subtle grief, the sadness almost when you realize you just don't identify with who you used to be anymore. It's not always dramatic, right? Just this quiet kind of melancholic feeling that the person you were, it's not really who you are now.
That sense of loss, acknowledging an old identity doesn't fit, it's actually a really normal part of growing, often a healthy part. But if we don't really sit with that grief, acknowledge it, it can definitely fuel that restless search for something new to fill the gap, Maybe a search that doesn't quite satisfy.
But underneath all these reasons, all these potential drivers, it feels like the core craving is the same, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Just to feel aligned, to feel whole, to feel, real. Authentically ourselves. That seems to be the goal behind all the moves and the makeovers.
I think you're absolutely right. The external changes, the reinventions, they're often just the visible signs of this much, much deeper longing for inner truth, for feeling like a complete integrated self.
Which brings us to this kind of turning point, maybe, this idea that perhaps we don't always need to burn it all down to get there. Maybe we don't need to keep chasing that elusive fresh start high. Maybe, just maybe. The answer is actually about learning how to unpack our bags right where we are.
Now, that is a really powerful shift, potentially quite liberating, actually, because it challenges that assumption we often have, that big external change is the only way, or even the best way, to find that inner peace or that sense of self.
Okay, so part 3 then, learning to stay. This feels like the heart of it, doesn't it? Actually moving away from that almost knee-jerk reaction to run, and instead turning toward ourselves, our current lives.
It really demands a different mindset, I think. A shift from, avoiding things towards integrating them, instead of always trying to erase or outrun who we were before. What if we try to understand how those experiences, those past versions, actually made us who we are now?
And what does that even look like practically? Committing to a place or a job or even just a situation long enough to build something real. It feels countercultural almost. We're always seeing ads for the next best thing, the greener grass, somewhere else.
There's a deep satisfaction, though, that I think we underestimate. Investing in a community or a career or a relationship over time, it allows for a different kind of growth, a deepening. You just can't get that if you're constantly pulling up your roots.
It makes me think of, the difference between constantly moving a little seedling from pot to pot versus letting a tree actually grow deep roots in one spot. You get to see it get stronger, weather the storms, it becomes resilient. It's about growing into a life, maybe, instead of always looking for a perfect ready-made one off the shelf.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it leads us to think about, okay, how do we do this? How do we practice learning to stay? Well, one thing is consciously trying to build a more flexible identity,
Flexible how?
one that can bend and adapt and evolve with new experiences, rather than needing a total demolition and rebuild every time something changes. Think of it less like a fixed label, maybe more like a core set of values that can express themselves differently as you grow.
That makes a lot of sense. So instead of these rigid boxes we try to squeeze ourselves into,
Yeah.
it's more about having a strong but adaptable core, something that can handle change without shattering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another part is actively finding ways to be okay, maybe even comfortable with where you are right now, even in those messy transition periods.
Uh-huh.
Those in-between times when you don't quite feel like the old you, but you're not quite the new you yet either.
Yeah.
That ambiguity, it can actually be really fertile ground for growth if we can just tolerate it.
That in-between space is so uncomfortable, though. The urge to just jump to the next solid thing is huge. But maybe, like you're saying, there's value in just sitting with the uncertainty, embracing the flow a bit.
Absolutely. And allowing for slow, gradual change. It takes off that immense pressure, that feeling that we need constant, rapid transformation, which honestly isn't usually sustainable anyway. Real growth is often pretty subtle, isn't it? It unfolds over time rather than happening in some big bang moment.
Yeah. And there's a kind of peace in that, isn't there? Letting go of that constant need to be better or different right now and just trusting the gradual process of becoming.
There really is. And there's surprising strength, real inner power in practicing patience, in consciously choosing not to run, even when everything inside you might be screaming, go, get out, start over. Resisting that urge can be incredibly powerful.
Listening to all this, I keep circling back to that closing thought we found. It just feels like it sums up so much of what we've been exploring.
It really does. It puts a fine point on a very human experience.
Maybe I wanted to start over because I thought I was broken. But maybe I just needed to pause. Maybe the version of me I've been running from still has something to say. And maybe starting over doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes it means staying and learning how to live with yourself without editing everything out. This might be something.
It just flips the whole script on starting over, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that maybe the real path, the path to growth and self-acceptance, isn't about endless external shifts. Maybe it's about a deep, compassionate acceptance of our whole selves, including the bits we think are flaws.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Maybe the very parts of ourselves we try hardest to escape, the things we try to bury with each new job or city, maybe they actually hold the keys. Maybe they have valuable things to tell us. Maybe they're not things to be discarded, but essential pieces of who we are, just waiting for us to finally stop running, turn around, and listen.
That's a profound place to pause, I think. The possibility that the answers we're chasing out there, and the fantasy of the fresh start, maybe they're already inside us, just waiting patiently for us to learn that difficult but maybe incredibly rewarding practice of just staying put and listening.
Right.
Really listening.